He kissed her forehead, whispered "Dubai," and walked out like nothing would ever go wrong. Maya nodded, trusting him, believing him, but then her 13-year-old son held up a phone that shouldn't exist. A single message glowed on the screen. "The penthouse is ready. Everyone thinks the designs are mine. See you at the launch, CEO." Everything she thought she knew, her husband, her family, her life, was a lie. And tonight, she wouldn't just uncover the truth. She would confront it. She would take back everything he stole, quietly, perfectly, and with power he never imagined a sweet wife could have. The question was, could Julian survive what was coming? Hello, my beautiful Mr. James family. Before we begin, I just want to say this from my heart. You are not just viewers to me. You are my family. Without your love, your time, your support, I am nothing, truly nothing. If you smile with my stories, if you feel something in your chest while listening, if even one line stays with you, then I humbly ask you, please become a part of this family. Please subscribe to the channel. And my most precious family members, I know many of you sometimes skip the story in the middle, but I promise you this, every story is written with purpose. Every ending is earned. Please watch till the very last second. I swear you will not regret it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in me. Now, let's begin the story. Cold air slid in from the hallway, sharp and metallic, carrying the smell of polished marble and someone else's expensive cologne from outside. Julian Vance stood half in, half out of the house, like he'd already left but wanted credit for staying. His coat fit him perfectly. It always did. Dark, structured, clean lines. The kind of coat that said control, the kind that made people believe him. He checked his watch, not once, twice, then again. His thumb tapped the glass like time owed him something. Maya noticed. She always noticed. The ticking in the room felt louder than the clock on the wall. Each second stretched thin, tight, like a wire pulled too far. Julian turned toward her and smiled. It was the same smile he used at charity dinners, the one investors trusted, the one that softened his eyes just enough to make people lean closer. Maya stepped forward anyway. She reached for him first. Her hands slid around his waist. The coat was cold under her palms. Too cold. Like it had been waiting somewhere else before he put it on. He hugged her back, tight, quick, efficient, not the kind of hug that lingered, not the kind that said, "I'll miss you." His arms pressed in, then loosened, already preparing to let go. Julian bent down and kissed her forehead. The kiss was light, careful, placed exactly where it always went. A habit. Maya breathed in. Leather. Mint, something faintly sweet that didn't belong to her soap or the house. Her chest tightened. Just a little. "Dubai," Julian said, like the word itself carried weight, like it could excuse anything. His voice was calm, smooth, no cracks. "If this deal fails," he continued, adjusting his cuff, "everything we built falls apart." Everything we built. Maya nodded. She didn't argue. She never did. The nod came automatically, like breathing. Her chin dipped once, slow, controlled. Julian watched her do it. He liked that part. Her quiet made him feel tall, solid, necessary. The house creaked behind them. From the staircase, Leo sat on the third step from the bottom, elbows on his knees, phone forgotten in his hand. He wasn't scrolling. He wasn't playing. He was watching. 13 years old, already learning which moments mattered. His eyes tracked his father's hands, the way Julian kept adjusting his watch, then his sleeve, then the edge of his coat. Always touching something. Never still. Leo noticed how his father didn't look back at the house. Not once. Not at the framed photos on the wall, not at the scuffed corner of the banister where Leo had chipped it at 9 and never told anyone. Not at the smell of toast still lingering faintly from breakfast. Julian's focus stayed forward, like the house was already behind him. Maya stepped back half an inch. The floor was cool under her bare feet. The tile pressed into her skin, grounding her. She folded her hands in front of her stomach. Her ring caught the light. Gold. Simple. Quiet. Julian's eyes flicked to it, then away. He turned toward the stairs. "Leo!" Leo straightened immediately. "Yes, sir." Julian smiled at him too. This one was different, sharper. "You take care of your mother," Julian said. "You're the man of the house now." The words hung in the air. Heavy. Too heavy for a 13-year-old boy's shoulders. Leo nodded. Once. His jaw tightened. Maya looked at her son. Something twisted in her chest. Quick, hot, gone before it could turn into words. Julian reached for the door handle. Metal scraped softly as his fingers wrapped around it. For a second, just one, he hesitated. Not enough to turn around, just enough to adjust his grip. Maya watched his hand. She noticed a faint vibration. So soft it could have been imagined. Julian's thumb stilled, his grip tightened. Then the vibration stopped. He opened the door fully. Cold air rushed in again, pushing against Maya's legs, sliding up her spine. Julian stepped out. Didn't look back. The door closed behind him with a dull final sound. Not a slam, not gentle either, just finished. The lock clicked. Silence followed, not peaceful silence, the kind that rings in your ears. The house felt bigger. Hollower. Every sound seemed too loud now. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, the faint buzz of the lights. Maya didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the door, as if it might open again. It didn't. Leo came down the stairs, slowly. Each step creaked under his weight. He stopped beside her. Neither of them spoke. The air smelled wrong now, like something had been taken out of it. Maya swallowed. Her throat felt tight, dry. She pressed her fingers together. Her ring felt heavier than it had a minute ago. Leo glanced up at her face. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Something had shifted. He felt it too. Maya finally exhaled, long, shaky. The sound surprised her. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Her eyes dropped to the door one last time. For the first time since she'd met Julian Vance, the smile he'd left her with didn't feel comforting. It felt rehearsed. And that thought, quiet, sharp, unwelcome, settled deep in her chest and refused to move. Maya turned away from the door, unaware that the smallest detail from that goodbye, the 1-second pause, the silenced vibration, the smile that came too easily, was already beginning to undo everything she thought she knew. It stayed alert, like something waiting to be caught. The air felt wrong, too still, too clean, like someone had wiped away fingerprints but forgotten the smell. Leo noticed it the moment the Wi-Fi dropped. The small red light on the router blinked once, twice, then held steady, accusing. That annoyed him more than it should have. Things weren't supposed to fail for no reason. Leo sat cross-legged on the floor of the home office, his back pressed against the desk leg. The wood dug into his shoulder blade. He didn't move away from it. The discomfort helped him focus. The room smelled like old paper, warm electronics, and faint lemon cleaner. His mum's attempt to keep everything calm, controlled, respectable. The computer fan hummed low and steady like breathing. He unplugged the router, waited, plugged it back in. Nothing. "Seriously?" he muttered. His fingers moved fast, practiced. He'd fixed this thing before. Too many times for a house this expensive. Julian always said the system was top tier. Leo knew better, Most things were only perfect on the surface. He leaned closer to the wall, eyes scanning for loose cables. That's when he saw it. The vent, low, almost hidden, slightly crooked. Leo froze, not because he was scared, because something about it felt intentional. He pushed himself up onto his knees and leaned in. The metal cover wasn't flush. One screw sat deeper than the others, like it had been tightened in a hurry. Leo pressed it. The vent shifted, barely, but enough. His stomach tightened. He opened the drawer slowly, careful not to let it slam. The screwdriver handle felt smooth and warm in his palm, familiar. He loosened the screw, one turn at a time, listening to the soft scrape of metal against metal. The vent came free. Dust drifted out, dry and bitter. It stuck to the back of his throat. He coughed quietly and waved it away. Inside the wall, darkness. Then something caught the light. Leo reached in. His fingers brushed plastic, cold, solid. He pulled it out. A phone. Old, scratched. The kind Julian claimed was obsolete. Leo stared at it. The screen lit up before he touched anything, powered on, no lock. That alone made his heart kick harder. Who leaves a phone unlocked? Who hides it inside a wall? The phone vibrated softly in his hand. Leo's grip tightened. A message slid across the screen. The penthouse is ready. Everyone thinks the designs are mine. See you at the launch, CEO. The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did. All at once. His mouth went dry, his ears rang faintly, like after standing too close to speakers. Designs, mine, launch, CEO. None of that belonged to Dubai. Leo swallowed hard. His hands didn't shake. That scared him more than if they had. He scrolled. Short messages, numbers instead of names, no photos, no jokes, no family updates, just plans, deadlines, money. He tapped the GPS icon. The map loaded slowly, like it was deciding whether to betray someone. The location marker hovered. Leo's breathing slowed. He counted it. In through his nose, out through his mouth, just like when things got overwhelming. The dot blinked, then snapped into place. A luxury hotel, downtown, 20 minutes away. Leo stared at the screen. His father wasn't across the world. He wasn't even far. He was close enough to come home for dinner. A cold feeling spread through Leo's chest, slow and heavy. Not anger, yet. Something quieter. Something sharper. He slid the phone into his hoodie pocket and stood. The office felt smaller now, like it knew what he knew. He replaced the vent cover loosely, not fixing it, just enough to hide the empty space. His fingers lingered on the metal for a second longer than necessary. Then he left the room. The hallway felt longer than before. The floor creaked under his steps. Family photos lined the walls. Smiles frozen in frames. Perfect angles, perfect lighting. Leo didn't stop. In the kitchen, Maya stood by the sink. The tap was running, water splashing against ceramic. The sound filled the room, steady, controlled, just like her. She was rinsing a mug that didn't need rinsing. Leo watched her hands, slim fingers, a faint line of flour still clinging to her knuckle from earlier. She hadn't noticed it yet. He stepped closer. "Mom." She turned, smiling softly. "Yeah?" That smile almost made him stop. Almost. He swallowed and placed both hands on the table. The wood felt solid, real. Dad isn't on a business trip. The water kept running. Maya blinked. Once. Her smile didn't fall, but it slipped. "What did you say?" she asked. Leo reached into his pocket and pulled out the phone, set it on the table between them. The screen lit up. The message glowed. Maya's eyes dropped to it. Her fingers tightened around the mug. It slipped, hit the sink, cracked. She turned the water off slowly. The kitchen felt suddenly too quiet. Leo watched her face change, not dramatically, not loudly, just a subtle shift, like something heavy settling behind her eyes. She reached for the phone, paused, then picked it up. The lobby of the penthouse building was a prism of light and wealth. Polished marble floors reflected the golden chandeliers above, multiplying the glow until the entire space seemed to hum with quiet excess. The faint scent of expensive perfume lingered in the air, a floral sweetness that didn't belong to Maya but wrapped around them as they stepped inside. Leo stayed close, hands clenched lightly at his sides, eyes scanning every corner. The sharp edge of his instincts told him this wasn't just a party. It was a fortress. Every detail screamed control. The way the furniture was arranged, the soft padding of the carpets, the hushed professional tones of the staff. Maya's heels clicked softly against the marble, but it felt like sound traveled farther than it should. She could feel the vibrations in her chest from the distant bass of music above, the crowd's murmur blending with glasses, clinking, and laughter that wasn't entirely genuine. Her stomach tightened. Every nerve in her body was awake, alert, calculating. They had paused near the elevators, letting the crowd drift around them. Maya's eyes scanned faces, rich, smug, unseeing. The kind who never looked beyond their own reflection in mirrored walls. She felt a flicker of anger, not just at them, but at Julian, at the betrayal. The thought made her stomach knot tighter. A shadow fell across her periphery. Movement, purposeful, controlled. A woman appeared beside them, tall, slim, every step measured. Black dress hugging her form without extravagance, sharp eyes that cut through the crowd, landing on Maya and Leo as if weighing them, reading them. "I'm Evelyn Carter," the woman said, voice low, smooth, authoritative. "Corporate compliance attorney." Maya stiffened. She instinctively took a small step back, one hand lightly brushing Leo's shoulder. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, her gaze softened almost imperceptibly. "Don't worry, I'm on your side." The words barely touched the space between them, but they carried weight. Maya's pulse picked up. She remembered all the time she had worked quietly in her dining room, nights after Leo had gone to sleep, sketching jewelry that Julian had dismissed as amateur. Each piece carried her grandmother's legacy, each engraving, each tiny design, a silent testament to a woman long gone who had trusted Maya to carry it forward. Evelyn's next words made her blood run cold. "Your husband tried to register jewelry designs 6 months ago." Maya blinked, stomach dropping. "I recognize the techniques," Evelyn continued, voice calm, deliberate, almost clinical. "They're not his." The lobby suddenly felt smaller, brighter, hotter. Maya's hands clenched the strap of her bag so tightly her knuckles ached. Leo shifted beside her, a shadow of anticipation on his young face. He had noticed the subtle tension in his mother's shoulders, the careful bite of her lips, the way her eyes narrowed slightly. Evelyn leaned closer, voice lowered even further. "If you're here to stop him, you're right on time." The words were precise, deliberate, carrying the weight of someone who had seen the machinery behind the glitz. Maya's lips pressed together, her mind raced. Every calculation she had made over the past hour, the burner phone, the GPS location, Julian's carefully constructed lies, now had a tangible ally. Evelyn was not a random stranger. She was someone inside the system, someone who could unpick the threads Julian had thought were invisible. The elevator chimed, doors sliding open smoothly, swallowing sound and light. Applause thundered from above. The music shifted, louder, more insistent, almost ceremonial. Maya felt a flicker of panic. The sound of the crowd above seemed to echo into her chest, pressing against her ribs. But she blocked it. focused, breathed, thought, every sense sharpened. Evelyn moved beside them, just enough to guide, but not overstep. "I know what he's planning," she said quietly, "and I know how he thinks he's covered, but he didn't count on me noticing the discrepancies, or on you noticing him hiding things." Maya nodded slowly. Her stomach still fluttered. The anger was there, simmering under the surface, but it was coiled, controlled, ready. Leo's eyes widened slightly. He knew the significance. Evelyn wasn't just an ally. She was a weapon in their corner. And weapons had precision. Maya took a step forward, heels clicking. Every eye near the elevator barely registered them, until Evelyn's subtle adjustment of posture made them pause just enough. "The designs," Maya said, voice low. "Do you have proof?" Evelyn's smile was tight, professional. "Enough. But you'll want to see it for yourself." The elevator doors closed behind them with a soft sigh. The interior smelled faintly of metal polish and new leather. The mirrors reflected them back in triplicate, but the reflection felt distorted, fractured. Maya could see herself, determined, Leo beside her, small but fierce, and Evelyn, sharp, exact, knowing. Maya's heart raced. She placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, feeling the tension there. He drew a sharp breath, nodding subtly. Evelyn held up a tablet from her bag. The screen glowed softly. Data, dates, registrations, design patterns, schematics Julian had tried to pass off as his own. Each entry was time-stamped, each note meticulously logged. Maya leaned closer, eyes scanning quickly. Every familiar engraving, every delicate curve she recognized instantly. The names Julian had tried to claim as his own were overwritten with her grandmother's original notations. Her pulse spiked. A burning anger surged, but behind it a calculated calm took root. Julian had assumed arrogance would shield him. He hadn't counted on diligence, on memory, on a mother who finally decided to fight. The elevator creaked slightly. The ascent felt slow, suspended, as if time itself had stretched in anticipation. Evelyn's eyes flicked toward the ceiling lights, gauging timing. "He's in there," she said softly. "Don't make a move yet. Let him believe he's untouchable. That's when it hurts the most." Maya nodded. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly. Not a smile, more like the tightening of resolve, the curve of steel forming under calm skin. The applause from above grew louder. Not far now, Maya felt it in her bones. Julian's moment of triumph was about to collide with the truth. Leo squeezed her hand, a quiet, sharp pulse. She returned it, fingers gripping his lightly silent communication. They were ready. Evelyn tapped the tablet, and a soft glow highlighted several design schematics. Each one was unmistakably Maya's. Each one traced directly to her family's lineage of craftsmanship. Julian's signature line of creativity was a lie. Maya's lips parted, not with shock but understanding. Real power, real leverage. A faint, almost imperceptible sound from the elevator startled them. A soft ding of arrival. The doors began to part, and through that slit, a wave of light and noise surged. The sound of a crowd, the flash of cameras, the glint of jewels. Maya stepped forward. Every instinct bristled. She knew Julian would notice them the second they emerged, but she also knew he would never anticipate Evelyn. Evelyn leaned in, whispering in Maya's ear, "There's one more person up there, someone who trusts neither of you. And he's about to make a move that could either expose everything or ruin your plan if you're not careful." The air suddenly felt tighter. The hum of the crowd seemed sharper, every pulse in Maya's body synchronized with Leo's anticipation, Evelyn's calm and the unknown variable waiting above. The elevator doors fully opened, and the three of them stepped into the room where Julian believed victory was already his. The crowd's roar hit him like a wave, and in the corner of the penthouse, a man's shadow detached itself from the gleaming walls, eyes dark, calculating, watching. Maya froze for a heartbeat, realizing this wasn't going to be just her fight anymore. The game had just shifted, and she wasn't sure who the enemy really was, and everything they thought was safe shifted. Maya held the phone in her hands, feeling the weight of a truth she hadn't asked for. Not yet, knowing that once she unlocked it, there would be no way back to the woman who believed the goodbye at the door. The elevator doors opened into a tidal wave of light and sound. Crystal chandeliers scattered reflections across the room, each glittering droplet throwing shards of gold and silver across marble floors and the walls lined with mirrors. The hum of conversation, laughter and clinking glasses collided with soft, classical music that hovered beneath the noise. Maya felt the pulse in her chest synchronize with it, each beat echoing against her ribs. The crowd moved in waves around them, their tailored suits and designer dresses a moving tapestry of wealth, privilege, and ego. Perfume and cologne mixed in the air, sweeter than it should be, heavy with hints of vanilla and synthetic jasmine that made the stomach turn slightly if you breathed too deeply. She inhaled anyway. Let it remind her of the stakes. Leo stayed close. His small hand pressed into hers for a fraction of a second, just enough to ground them both. She felt the tension in his fingers, the controlled energy of a boy too young to fully understand betrayal, but old enough to recognize deceit instantly. And there he was, Julian, on stage, like a king who had just claimed a crown that didn't belong to him, his posture perfect, suit tailored to an impossible degree, the lights bouncing off his dark hair and those impossible blue eyes. Confidence radiated from him, carefully constructed, practiced. But Maya could see the cracks, tiny, almost invisible, a microshift in his smile, a pause before his laughter. She didn't react. She didn't let him know she saw it. The glass cases behind him gleamed under the lights. Jewelry. Her jewelry. Every piece bore the delicate engraving she had sketched at midnight, the careful curves she'd spent hours perfecting under the lamp at the dining table, her grandmother's legacy, stolen and displayed as if it were his own genius. Maya's hands pressed against the marble railing of the balcony leading to the main floor. Her nails dug in slightly, but she didn't flinch. Every muscle in her body coiled, ready, deliberate. She was not here to scream, not to cry, not to beg. She was here to finish something. Julian stepped closer to the microphone. The applause rose and fell around him like a wave, but he barely noticed. He was focused on the woman beside him. Tall, blonde, dressed in a shimmering gown that caught the chandelier lights with every movement. He pulled her slightly closer and smiled like the world itself owed him obedience. "My muse and partner," he said, voice rich, smooth, rehearsed, "inspired the soul of this collection." The crowd erupted again. Glasses clinked, soft laughter rippled, phones flashed. Julian's charm did what he always intended, hypnotized them, made them forget. Then he laughed lightly, turning his gaze briefly toward the gallery of cases. His smile lingered in a dangerous, practiced way. "My wife," he said slowly, letting his eyes sweep the crowd, landing briefly on Maya, "is sweet, but she lacks vision for this level." Leo's hands clenched into fists at his sides, small, tense, almost trembling, but under control. His eyes never left his father, every word, every gesture recorded in the sharp clarity of his mind. Maya remained still. She let the words hit the room, let the laughter echo against the walls, bouncing off the mirrored surfaces. But she didn't react. She had no intention of giving Julian the satisfaction of a response. Not yet. Evelyn stepped beside them, silently. She was a shadow in black, observing, analyzing, calculating. Her gaze flicked over the crowd, over the stage, over Julian, then back to Maya. She pressed the tablet lightly into Maya's hands. The screen glowed softly in the dim light. Legal documents, time-stamped sketches, registration forms, all pointing directly at Julian. Each claim he had made about originality was already undermined. Maya's pulse surged. Her breath caught in her throat for only a moment before she steadied it. Calm, calculated, controlled. The applause from the crowd began to build again as Julian raised his hands slightly. Every eye in the room was on him, every smile, every nod, every gasp, a chorus of validation. But validation for a lie. Maya let her fingers hover over the tablet screen. Her thumb traced the edge, memorizing the weight of proof in her hand. The evidence. Her designs. Her years of quiet labor now poised to strike back. A waiter passed by, carrying trays of champagne. The bubbles glimmered in the glasses, tiny lights reflecting off the jewelry cases. The smell of cold, sparkling wine hit Maya, sharp and crisp, a reminder of the world Julian thrived in. A world she had always been dismissed from. Julian's laughter rang again, low, charismatic, practiced. He gestured toward the blonde woman, and she leaned in slightly, smiling. He thought she was an ally, a muse. The room thought the same. But none of them knew that every second of this event was being watched and recorded from Evelyn's tablet. Every contract Julian had manipulated, every fraudulent claim, every hidden signature, documented and ready. Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. Her heartbeat slowed deliberately. Her mind mapped out the next steps. She could wait, let him continue basking in applause, or she could strike now. The risk was immense, but she had control, more than he had ever allowed her to have. Leo nudged her slightly. Small, imperceptible, but enough. She understood timing, patience, precision. A soft chuckle from Julian carried through the room as he admired his so-called genius. The investors leaned forward, eyes bright, notebooks open, minds ready to be impressed. But none of them knew the truth. None of them saw the hidden chain of events waiting to shatter the illusion. Then, subtle, almost imperceptible, Evelyn whispered into Maya's ear, "The woman on stage, your design's in her hands. She thinks she's untouchable. She's about to reveal more than she realizes. Watch her closely." Maya's stomach tightened. This was the twist she hadn't expected. Not Julian alone, but a player she hadn't accounted for. Someone watching, waiting to manipulate the moment. Her eyes flicked briefly to the stage. The blonde smiled, elegant, poised, unknowing that the foundation beneath her was built on a lie. Maya pressed her lips together, slowly exhaling. The plan wasn't ruined, but it had a new variable. A dangerous one. The music shifted subtly, signaling the next part of the gala. Julian's smile widened. The crowd responded. The moment of triumph was approaching. Maya's fingers flexed on the tablet. Leo's eyes locked on her. Evelyn's gaze never wavered. The room vibrated with anticipation. 100 eyes fixed on Julian. 100 hearts ready to be impressed by the wrong man. And yet, the first move of the counterstrike was already in place, unseen. Maya stepped forward, heels clicking against marble, each step deliberate, measured, loud enough to catch a fraction of attention, but not enough to reveal intent. The crowd barely noticed. Julian didn't notice, and that was exactly how it had to be. Just as Maya prepared to reveal the evidence, the shadow from the corner of the room Someone Julian trusted, shifted slightly. Not a staff member, not an investor. Someone with influence. Someone with the ability to disrupt both sides if they acted first. Maya's mind snapped into rapid calculations. The game had changed. She realized this confrontation wasn't just about Julian anymore. It was about reading the room, predicting moves, and making the right strike at the perfect moment. Julian lifted the glass, poised for another toast. The room's applause swelled. Maya's finger hovered over the tablet, her heart pounding. And from the corner of the room, the shadow moved closer, and she understood in that instant that everything could unravel before her plan even began. Julian adjusted his cuff, the polished black of his sleeve glinting under the chandelier light. Cameras swiveled, capturing every moment, every gesture. Flash after flash painted him in bright halos, his blue eyes glinting with that practiced, untouchable charm. He stepped toward the gleaming contract, the one that would officially cement the gala as his triumph, and for a moment, the room felt like it belonged to him entirely. Leo shifted beside Maya, his hand lightly brushing against hers. The brush was small, almost imperceptible, but it carried weight. He leaned in, voice a whisper against the hum of applause, of champagne glasses clinking, of soft murmurs echoing across marble. "He's about to lose everything," Leo murmured. Maya's heart didn't race. It didn't pound. It slowed, narrowed, focused. She felt the weight of every stolen night, every sketch dismissed, every subtle put-down Julian had delivered with that charming smile. All of it converged into a single, sharp clarity. Julian took the pen from the podium, metal cool against his fingertips. The audience leaned in, eyes gleaming, phones poised to capture the perfect image of the billionaire sealing his empire. Cameras flashed again, white bursts of light blinding in their intensity. The sound reverberated in Maya's chest, but she was calm, a storm beneath the surface. Months ago, Julian had demanded she sign insurance papers, words carefully chosen to disarm, promises of security, empty reassurances that this was for their protection, for their future. He hadn't counted on her. Or, more importantly, Leo. Leo had intercepted those papers long before, scanning them meticulously. Every line read, every clause verified, every signature rerouted. And what Julian had thought were harmless formalities were now instruments of his undoing. The papers weren't insurance forms, not anymore. They were a trust agreement. Every design, every sketch, every intricate technique inherited from her grandmother's lineage, legally, irrevocably owned by Maya. Maya's fingers brushed the tablet in her bag. Light glowed against her palm as she verified one last time, each document time-stamped, legally binding. She allowed herself a fraction of satisfaction, just a shadow of a smile. Julian thought he controlled everything. He thought the gala, the investors, the applause were sufficient shields against truth. He hadn't anticipated a mother who learned patience, nor a son who watched, remembered, and acted when it mattered most. Julian's hand hovered over the contract, poised to sign. His smile broadened, a glimmer of triumph in his expression, utterly unaware that the foundation of his empire was already slipping through his fingers. Cameras flashed again, blinding light reflecting off the cases of stolen jewelry behind him. And then she moved. Maya stepped forward, her heels clicking deliberately against the polished floor. Each step was measured, precise, echoing faintly in the room, but catching Julian's eye. He paused for just a fraction of a second, his confidence flickering, unrecognized by the crowd, but glaring in her perception. She lifted the tablet, bringing it into view. The screen illuminated her face, casting her brown skin in warm highlights beneath the chandelier. She did not flinch. Her gaze swept the audience, the investors, the glittering crowd, but never wavered from Julian. "Julian," she said, voice steady, cutting through the hum of conversation, the low echo of applause. It seems there's been a misunderstanding." He laughed lightly, masking unease. "Maya, what are you doing here? This isn't your place." Her eyes sharpened. Every inch of her posture radiated control, authority, precision. "Actually," she said, letting a pause hang between them, allowing the whisper of anticipation to settle over the crowd, "it's exactly my place. Every design you're presenting here, my designs, my grandmother's legacy, and legally," she tapped the tablet, "every sketch, every technique belongs to me. All of it." A ripple of confusion ran through the crowd. Phones lifted, whispers spread, some investors exchanging quick, puzzled glances. Cameras snapped furiously, capturing not Julian's triumph but the growing tension between the seemingly unshakable billionaire and the calm, composed woman confronting him. Julian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of disbelief crossing the perfect blue. His jaw tightened. His hand hovered over the pen for just a moment longer before the room felt his hesitation like a tremor. You replaced the papers," he said slowly, voice taut, a barely contained edge of panic under the practiced charm. Maya nodded. "I did, and I don't need your approval for what's mine." Her words were calm, but every syllable carried weight. She allowed a single, deliberate pause before continuing. "Every design you just showcased, legally, it's already off the table." A murmur rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. The crowd leaned forward. Julian's polished smile faltered, then stiffened. Leo stepped beside her, subtle but firm. The boy's presence alone radiated authority. He was 13, but his eyes, dark and serious, reflected calculation, strategy, and courage. He whispered softly, just enough for her, "They never thought we'd play chess while they played checkers." Maya pressed the tablet toward Julian, the glow casting his face in stark relief. The documents displayed the time-stamped registration, the clear legal ownership, every signature, every line, every clause verified and irrevocable. The audience began to murmur louder. The investors leaned closer to the stage. Whispers spread like wildfire, cameras raised. Julian's moment of control began to crumble, piece by piece. He tried to speak, to salvage the moment, but the words caught in his throat. The applause that had once heralded his triumph turned to murmurs of confusion, curiosity, skepticism. The carefully constructed image of dominance, perfection, charm, it was slipping through his fingers faster than he could grasp. Evelyn's eyes met Maya's, one brief glance, and they understood each other perfectly. Timing was critical. The crowd needed only the slightest nudge. Julian needed the illusion maintained, just long enough for the legal proof to strike hard. Julian lifted the pen again, stiff fingers betraying panic he refused to vocalize. But it was too late. Every signature was legally binding. Every investor now held the subtle truth. The designs were not his. Maya stepped fully into the light, the glow of the tablet reflecting in her brown eyes, steady, unwavering. "This," she said softly but clearly, "is no longer yours to claim." Julian's jaw tightened. His charm faltered. The cameras continued to flash, capturing a moment that would circulate long after the gala ended. His eyes darted to Evelyn, to Leo, to the glowing tablet, and finally back to Maya. The first domino had fallen. Just as Julian realized his empire of illusion was collapsing, a soft vibration hummed through his pocket. A second burner phone, one he had forgotten existed, blinked. Another message, another secret he thought hidden. Maya's eyes flicked to it. Her stomach tightened. Someone else had been watching too. And their move could change everything before the legal proof even finished its work. Julian froze, pen hovering over the contract, sweat prickling at his temple. Maya's brown eyes locked on him, calm, commanding. And then the second phone buzzed, the screen lit with a message he hadn't expected, a silent warning. Someone else had been playing the same game all along. Maya realized in that heartbeat. The fight was far from over, and the real battle had just begun. The sudden quiet was deafening. Maya stepped fully into the center of the gala, her brown skin luminous under the chandeliers, radiating calm and control. Every eye in the room tried to follow her movement, but the flash of cameras, the murmurs of the crowd, even the soft hum of the music faded into a single heavy silence. She lifted the tablet deliberately. The glow reflected off the polished floors, casting a pale light onto Julian's sharp features. The live feed on the screen showed his bank accounts. Immense sums frozen. Every dollar, every credit, every asset traced back to her inheritance, now legally secured and untouchable. Julian's eyes widened, a subtle flicker of disbelief crossing his carefully maintained facade. He opened his mouth to speak, to charm, to explain away the impossible. But no words came. His smile twitched, cracking at the edges, betraying the first true panic of the night. Maya's hands remained steady. She adjusted the microphone, letting it capture the faint scratch of her heels against the marble. The sound echoed through the room, a tiny punctuation to the weight of her authority. "Julian," she said softly, her voice steady, almost gentle but laced with steel. "You said this was a business trip." She paused, letting the words hang in the air, absorbing the tension in every listener's chest. The silence was thick enough to taste, sharp, metallic, pressing against skin and bone. "You were right," she continued, eyes locking on Julian's. "It's the day I take my business back." The murmurs among the investors began, small at first, then swelling like ripples across water. Phones tilted, whispers carried, and cameras clicked endlessly. But the focus remained on her. She felt the pulse of anticipation in the crowd, the raw, collective awareness of a power shift. Evelyn moved beside her, silent and deliberate. The attorney's calm presence radiated confidence. Together, they were a storm restrained by control, poised to strike at the exact point of maximum effect. Julian's blue eyes darted around the room, trying to measure the damage, to assess the loss. He took a step back, just enough to betray hesitation. A crack in his posture that no one in the crowd could read but Maya and Evelyn. Her mind traced the arc of years, every late-night sketching designs, every dismissive comment, every lie told under the guise of charm. And now, all of it was converging, poised to explode in a single, unshakable moment. She tapped the tablet gently, each account frozen, each transaction highlighted. Every investor now had the proof they would need to question Julian's credibility. Each flash of light from a camera seemed to amplify the truth. Leo watched beside her, small but impossibly fierce, 13 years old, yet the clarity in his eyes betrayed his age. He had seen the patterns, the manipulations, the lies. And now, his mother had transformed the quiet power they had been gathering into a weapon sharp enough to cut through Julian's empire. Julian's lips parted, but the words caught. The audience leaned forward slightly, sensing his faltering confidence. His hands twitched, brushing over the contract he had thought would finalize his triumph. Every gesture seemed off, measured too slowly, calculated too late. Maya's pulse remained even. She didn't flinch. She didn't shift. She let the tension hold, each second a silent drumbeat echoing through the room. Investors whispered, exchanging glances, eyes narrowing. Questions flickered on their faces. Was this legal? Could he have done this? Did the man they had trusted with millions just lose control in the most public way possible? Julian's gaze swept the crowd. He searched for allies, for some indication of loyalty, but the subtle shift in their posture told him what he didn't want to admit. Trust was gone, confidence shattered, control slipping. Maya adjusted her stance slightly, one heel forward, weight balanced perfectly, shoulders relaxed but rigid with intent. The microphone caught the faint, deliberate rustle of her dress, every movement a statement of ownership. Then she leaned slightly closer to the microphone, voice dropping just enough for the nearest tables to hear every word clearly. All of this, she gestured broadly, indicating the jewelry, the applause, the gala itself, was built on my work, my family's work, and it ends tonight. Julian's hands tightened at his sides. The pen hovered above the contract, frozen mid-air. His carefully curated smile had been replaced by a subtle, almost imperceptible twitch. He could feel the air of inevitability pressing down on him, and for the first time, he understood the fragility of the illusion he had built so meticulously. Evelyn's hand brushed against Maya's, a silent acknowledgement of timing. The live feed of accounts glowed brighter. Each flash from the cameras seemed synchronized with the beating of her pulse, the rush of adrenaline she carefully kept contained. Leo, standing close, whispered just enough for her to hear. "He can't charm his way out of this one." Julian's eyes flicked to the tablet. Panic prickled at the edges of his composure. The room seemed to tilt, a silent acknowledgement spreading through the crowd that the game had shifted irrevocably. Then, soft but sharp, a new sound cut through the tension, a faint ping from the corner of the room. Another phone, another secret, another move she hadn't anticipated. Maya's mind raced, calculating the new variable. Whoever was sending that alert had access to Julian's private communications. Possibly another hidden accomplice. The plan she had carefully executed was flawless, except for this new player. Julian's gaze snapped toward the corner, eyes narrowing. The slight twitch in his jaw revealed the edge of fear, the first real crack in his composure that no audience could ignore. The crowd leaned in instinctively, sensing the confrontation was about to escalate. Cameras angled toward the new movement. Whispers escalated. The room vibrated with anticipation. Maya's lips pressed together briefly, then parted, steady, commanding. "You thought you could control everything, every account, every design, every investor," she said, voice calm but unyielding. "But control isn't given. It's taken. And tonight, Julian, it belongs to me." Julian's hands dropped slightly. He tried to summon the charm, the practiced ease, the smile that had once disarmed everyone. But it faltered under the weight of truth, the evidence, the collective attention now pressing down on him. Evelyn's gaze never wavered. The tablet's glow reflected in her eyes. A silent promise. Timing mattered, and the leverage they held was absolute. Leo's eyes were wide, intense. He understood the stakes, even at 13. Every movement, every breath, every glance mattered. He had helped create this moment, and now it was unfolding with perfect precision. The new phone pinged again. Julian's eyes darted toward it, hesitating, revealing the slightest hint of panic. The crowd noticed. Cameras flashed. The moment of dominance he had believed in was crumbling. Maya's heart remained steady, but inside, a spark of adrenaline flared. The final act had begun. The ping revealed not a threat to her, but to Julian. The message indicated that someone else within his inner circle had already noticed the discrepancies in his accounts and designs. Julian now faced exposure from two fronts: Maya's legal claim and an insider with unknown intentions. Julian's jaw tightened. His blue eyes flicked nervously between Maya, the tablet, and the corner of the room where the phone's alert had originated. Every calculated step he had planned was unraveling. Maya stood calm, radiant, unshakable. And as the room held its breath, one final voice, soft, deliberate, unseen, spoke from the shadows. "Did you really think you could win this alone, Julian?" The laughter Julian tried to summon died somewhere between his throat and the ceiling. It was hollow, forced, a sound too practiced to be real. The chandeliers reflected nothing but his own uncertainty back at him. Every flash of a camera, every clink of a glass, now seemed to underscore the emptiness in his performance. The crowd no longer followed him. They waited, anticipated, measured. Every eye now flicking between him and the woman who had brought the room to silence. Maya's brown eyes were calm, radiant in the flood of light. Every inch of her posture radiated authority. She didn't move hastily, she didn't tremble. She had learned patience through long nights of quiet labor, through every dismissal he had ever handed her, through every microaggression that had gone unnoticed by the world. Evelyn's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "These designs are stolen intellectual property. Any contract signed tonight is void." She didn't shout. She didn't plead. She stated facts, simple, irrevocable, legally binding. The word void hung in the air like smoke, curling and filling every corner of the room. Investors froze, phones lowered. The subtle hum of anticipation transformed into tense whispers. The crowd shifted, leaning subtly backward, re-evaluating everything they had believed minutes before. Julian's eyes flicked across the room, blue, calculating, searching for an ally, but he found none. They all knew. They had always known. The charade of charm and power no longer protected him. It had crumbled under the weight of truth. "You wouldn't destroy me," he whispered, voice breaking slightly at the edges. There was no anger, only fear, vulnerability in the man who had always relied on control as a weapon. Maya met his gaze, unflinching. The glow from the tablet illuminated her features, calm and composed. "I didn't," she said quietly. "You did that yourself." His voice trembled now, small but audible, carrying across the room, catching the ears of every investor, every guest. Every flash of recognition painted his face with the first real cracks in his polished exterior. Maya's fingers brushed lightly across the tablet. Every account frozen, every design secured, every signature and document time-stamped, legal proof so meticulous it could not be contested. Julian's hands, once steady, twitched at his sides. His chest rose and fell sharply. The smell of sweat and cologne mingled under the chandeliers, sharp, overpowering. For the first time, the air felt heavy around him, thick with realization, accountability, and the silent judgment of those who had once cheered. Investors stepped back. Phones lowered, but not before capturing every subtle falter, every twitch of a smile that had now completely vanished. Their murmurs were sharp, speculative, judgmental. Some whispered questions to colleagues, some considered walking out entirely. The illusion Julian had built for years was collapsing, brick by brick, under the weight of truth. Maya moved closer, each step measured. She could feel Leo's hand lightly brush hers. A silent acknowledgement that the boy had watched every detail, every manipulation, every lie, and had helped orchestrate this moment. Julian tried to regain composure. A laugh, shallow and uneven, escaped. It did nothing. No one followed with applause. No one mirrored his charm. Even the woman he had paraded as his muse looked uncertain now, as if she sensed the foundations beneath her were shaking. Evelyn stepped slightly forward. "Every contract, every investor promise made tonight," she said calmly, "is invalid. The legal ownership of the designs rests with Maya Vance. Any attempts to proceed otherwise will be contested immediately. Her tone carried weight. Absolute. Immovable. The investors murmured among themselves. Phones tilted, cameras captured the subtle interactions. Julian's posture stiffened, a rigid column of panic barely disguised under a thin veneer of charm. Julian's voice wavered as he tried again, desperate. You don't understand. Maya shook her head slowly, calm, deliberate, every movement precise. I understand perfectly, she said. I understand what you built on lies. I understand what you thought you could control, and I understand that control was never yours to begin with. The applause that had once heralded his success had disappeared entirely. Every gaze now assessed him critically, with the knowledge that he had been exposed. Every flash of a camera captured not triumph, but collapse. Leo's small hand brushed against her wrist. She looked down at him, eyes softening just enough to acknowledge the bond, the shared victory. He gave her a subtle nod, full of unspoken understanding. We did this together. Julian's blue eyes darted around again, searching for a lifeline, for someone, anyone who could salvage the moment. But there was none. The audience had seen too much. They had heard too much. They had witnessed too much. A subtle vibration hummed through the room again. Another device, another alert. Julian's pocket buzzed, and the sight of it, another secret he had failed to anticipate, sent a spike of panic through him. Maya's gaze shifted to the source. She noticed something the crowd didn't yet. Someone else had been observing, manipulating, waiting for the right moment. This was a move Julian hadn't foreseen, and it threatened to dismantle the very last illusion he clung to. Julian's voice cracked, a high, desperate sound. This isn't... It can't be... Stop, Maya interrupted, calm and commanding. This isn't about me breaking you. This is about you realizing the truth. You created your own downfall. Sweat prickled along his hairline. Every heartbeat pounded loudly against the tight fabric of his suit. The chandeliers above seemed to flicker with the intensity of the moment, reflections bouncing across the jewelry cases he had stolen from her. The investors whispered urgently, phones raised, cameras clicked furiously. The gala, once a stage for Julian's glory, had become a theatre of exposure. And then Evelyn tilted her head slightly, indicating toward the corner of the room. A faint, almost imperceptible signal, but enough for Maya to understand. Another player. Someone who had remained silent until now, someone positioned perfectly to tip the balance even further. Maya's pulse remained calm. Her strategy had accounted for Julian. But this new player added a layer of unpredictability. She didn't flinch, she didn't falter, she adapted. Julian's lips parted again. No charm, no rehearsed line, only raw panic. He was surrounded, outmaneuvered, and completely exposed. The music continued faintly in the background, but it felt distant, drowned out by the tension, by the silence of a man losing control in real time. Maya pressed the tablet lightly against her chest. Her brown skin glowed under the chandelier light. She was steady, she was unshakable, she was the embodiment of the calm that comes after storms of deceit. Julian's gaze flicked to Evelyn. His eyes widened slightly. The realization struck. He had miscalculated. Not only had Maya secured the designs, but allies he hadn't considered were now in play. A soft ping sounded. Another alert. Julian's eyes darted toward it instinctively. Sweat pricked his temple. He understood immediately that the next move could end him completely, not just financially, but socially, legally, and publicly. The room leaned forward collectively, the collective tension palpable. Every whisper, every footstep, every subtle shuffle amplified the moment. Maya exhaled slowly, deliberately. "This," she said, voice carrying across the silent room, "was never about destroying you. You did that yourself." Julian's jaw tightened. Panic clawed at him like cold hands. The gala had transformed from celebration to judgment, and he was completely unprepared for the verdict. Just as Julian tried to regain some composure, the corner of the room shifted again. A previously unseen guest, an influential investor he had trusted implicitly, stepped forward. They held evidence of additional discrepancies in his accounts and contracts. Julian realized his exposure was not limited to Maya's action. It was now compounded by someone within his own circle, a hidden observer, ready to act. Julian's blue eyes darted frantically. The audience whispered, cameras clicked, and the last threads of control slipped from his grasp. Maya's gaze never wavered. Evelyn's presence was silent, precise, unyielding. And from the corner of the room, the unseen investor stepped forward, a shadow of power and intent, ready to strike. Julian realized too late that his empire was unraveling from all sides at once. The room was heavy with tension. Cameras continued to flash, catching Julian frozen mid-step, eyes darting like a trapped animal, while the murmurs of investors and guests echoed faintly across the marble floors. His carefully built aura of invincibility had shattered, leaving nothing but a man stripped bare by exposure. Leo's small hand rested lightly against his mother's, but his presence carried weight far beyond his 13 years. Julian's gaze swept over him, eyes narrowing as if suddenly seeing something he had ignored for far too long. This wasn't the boy who clung silently to his mother's skirt at fancy dinners. This wasn't the child who had smiled politely when Julian recounted tales of business triumphs and lesser minds. No, this was a witness, a strategist, a silent force that had absorbed every detail, calculated every risk, and waited patiently for the precise moment to act. Leo didn't speak. He didn't need to. His eyes, dark and unwavering, conveyed everything: recognition of betrayal, understanding of deceit, and the cold, calculated clarity of someone who had learned far too early not to trust appearances. Julian's smile faltered. He opened his mouth, searching for charm, for words that could disarm. But no words came. Only the weight of realization pressed down. His power, once absolute, vanished in the silence of the room. Security approached from the sides, crisp suits and poised authority moving in precise formation. Julian's breath quickened imperceptibly, a subtle tremor in his chest he couldn't hide. The audience leaned forward, collectively, sensing the first true consequence of his actions. Cameras clicked relentlessly. Every flash emphasized the unraveling of a man who had always relied on control, wealth, and charm to dictate outcomes. Maya's hand squeezed Leo's briefly. The gesture was small, almost invisible, but carried the unspoken message. He was not just observing. He was participating. He was part of the force dismantling Julian's illusion. Julian's lips parted slightly. You can't," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. His eyes darted across the audience, seeking validation, seeking allies, seeking escape routes. But the subtle shift in every investor's posture, every subtle tilt of the head, confirmed what he feared. He had been isolated, completely. Leo's gaze never wavered. He had observed every smirk, every dismissive glance Julian had once thrown at his mother. He had catalogued every lie, every manipulation, every false promise. And now, all of it converged in the clarity of the moment, silent but lethal. Evelyn stepped forward, authoritative, calm, commanding. She whispered something to Maya that barely reached anyone else. But it carried enormous weight. Timing was everything. Julian's exposure had begun, but the final consequences would be orchestrated meticulously. The investors murmured, leaning closer to each other, whispering about contracts, about legality, about trust. Some tilted their phones subtly, capturing footage, documents, proof of the man's unraveling. Every flicker of Julian's hesitation, every twitch of panic was recorded, catalogued, and silently judged. Julian's hands, once steady and confident, now twitched at his sides. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, each movement betraying panic beneath the carefully constructed exterior. The soft scratch of his shoe against marble sounded unnaturally loud in the silence of anticipation. Maya's pulse remained steady. Her brown skin glowed softly under the chandeliers, calm, commanding, deliberate. Every movement was precise, every gesture controlled. The weight of patience, of preparation, of quiet years of work now bore down in full force. Leo stepped slightly forward, tiny but unyielding. He did not speak, but his presence alone was a rebuke, a reminder that Julian's power had never extended to understanding the people he underestimated. His son, once overlooked, now stood as the living testament to consequences, silent, unwavering, unbreakable. Julian's eyes flicked between Maya and Leo. The recognition hit him with staggering force. He had built his empire on appearances, on deceit, on charm, and none of it mattered here. Not the money, not the gala, not the applause. Maya's hand brushed lightly over the tablet in her bag. She could feel the warmth of the screen, the glow of ownership, proof, legitimacy. Every design, every sketch, every legal document now irrevocably hers. Julian could see it reflected in her calm confidence, a storm he had no control over. Suddenly, a murmur ran through the crowd. Investors leaned closer, whispering urgently, phones tilted, cameras raised. The first subtle reactions of betrayal and disbelief began to cascade outward. Julian tried to raise his voice to reclaim the stage, but his throat caught, his words failing. Leo's dark eyes never left Julian's, not an inch. The boy had watched, remembered, calculated, and in this moment his silence was louder than any scream, any accusation. Every investor, every guest sensed it. The son who had never looked away now owned the gaze that judged, exposed, and dismantled Julian's carefully curated persona. Julian's chest rose and fell sharply. Sweat prickled along his hairline. His perfectly tailored suit felt suffocating. He realized, too late, that the boy he had dismissed had become an instrument of truth. He had no charm to shield him, no money to manipulate him, no audience to pacify him. Only consequences remained. Evelyn's presence remained steady. The attorney's eyes flicked to the tablet, then to Julian, then to the audience. Timing, strategy, precision. Every action had been orchestrated to maximize exposure, to ensure that the man who thought himself untouchable would face the unfiltered weight of reality. Julian's lips twitched in a vain attempt at a smile. It failed. The first whispers of panic touched his voice, uneven, raw. This isn't... It can't be... Maya's eyes softened just slightly toward her son, acknowledging the quiet partnership between them. Then she shifted her gaze back to Julian, unyielding, commanding. "It is," she said simply, "and this moment is yours to own, fully." The murmurs grew louder, swelling into a low roar of curiosity, concern, and judgment. Every flash of the camera captured a man unraveling in real time. Every subtle movement was amplified. And then the logical twist. One of Julian's closest allies, previously hidden in the shadows, stepped forward. A senior investor he had trusted implicitly. Their voice, calm but cutting, announced a revelation that Julian hadn't anticipated, another layer of exposure, one that threatened not just his wealth, but his credibility entirely. Julian froze. His blue eyes widened. The recognition of betrayal from within his own circle struck like a hammer to steel. The audience leaned forward instinctively, cameras capturing every subtle expression. His empire, once untouchable, now cracked under the weight of truth from all sides. Maya remained calm. Brown skin radiant, posture unwavering, pulse steady. Leo's presence beside her was small, but immeasurably powerful. Evelyn's silent nod confirmed the next steps were already in motion. Julian's breath caught. Panic clawed at the edges of his composure. The gala had become a tribunal, a court of public and private judgment. Every whisper, every flash, every subtle shift of an investor's weight amplified the final truth. Julian's reign was over. The ally stepping forward revealed evidence of additional financial mismanagement, hidden contracts, and secret accounts Julian had believed were invisible. Maya and Leo had not anticipated this intervention, but it accelerated the collapse, ensuring that Julian's exposure was total and irreversible. Julian's blue eyes darted frantically. The audience murmured. Cameras clicked, and the final threads of control slipped completely from his grasp. Maya's gaze remained steady, unyielding. Leo's dark eyes bore into his, unflinching, and the once trusted insider smiled faintly, holding the proof that could ruin him entirely. Julian realized, in that heartbeat, that nothing, not charm, not money, not influence, could save him now. The empire he had built on lies was collapsing, and the final verdict was about to be delivered. The city lights stretched like a river of gold, reflecting in Maya's eyes as she stepped away from the penthouse, heels clicking sharply against the marble of the entrance lobby. The air smelled faintly of expensive perfume, polished wood, and the subtle trace of champagne that lingered after the gala. She could feel it on her skin, almost tangible, the remnants of the chaos she had just orchestrated. She slipped the wedding band from her finger, cold metal, heavy with memories of betrayal, false promises, and years of unseen work. A waiter approached, tray raised politely, but Maya didn't hesitate. She pressed the ring into his hand. "Keep it," she said softly. Her voice was calm, deliberate, resonating with quiet authority. She didn't glance back. The gesture wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. It was final. Leo, beside her, adjusted his backpack and stepped lightly into the cab she had called. His eyes were still bright with adrenaline. His pulse quickened from the intensity of the night, but there was a serene pride in the way he looked at her. "Grandma would be proud," he said quietly, almost in a whisper. Maya's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. She could feel the truth of it in her chest. Every sketch, every late night, every whispered dismissal of her amateur designs had led to this. Not revenge, not even triumph, but the pure, steady realization that she was standing on her own, fully built, unshakable. She exhaled slowly, a breath long held, full and freeing. The city lights streaked past the taxi window, blurred into streaks of amber and white like a river of endless possibility. For the first time in years, she wasn't racing to meet expectations. She was steering her own path. The car's tires hummed against the asphalt. The faint scent of Leo's cologne mixed with the leather of the seats, grounding her. She let her fingers trace the edges of the tablet in her lap. The evidence of every move she had orchestrated, every detail she had preserved, every ounce of control she had claimed back. Her mind replayed the gala, Every subtle shift in Julian's posture, every flicker of panic, every whisper and glance, she could see it now, like a painting come alive. The investor's eyes, the security moving, the applause turning into stunned silence. She had choreographed the chaos without raising her voice, without a single dramatic outburst. Maya turned to Leo, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You did well," she murmured, her voice low, almost tender. Leo shrugged, trying to appear casual, but the pride in his posture betrayed him. "I didn't do anything," he said softly, though his hand lingered on hers for a moment. "You did it. Everything." Maya shook her head. The city lights reflected in her brown eyes. "We did it," she said. "Together." The cab turned into the main avenue, headlights washing over buildings with glass facades that glittered like jewels themselves. Maya could feel the pulse of the city, the hum of life that had continued without pause while she had rewritten her own destiny. She wasn't running from the past. She was claiming the future. And yet, a subtle unease lingered just beneath her calm. Julian wasn't gone from her life entirely. There were still whispers of his reach, faint threads that might attempt to tie her back, small tendrils of influence she had yet to sever completely, but she didn't dwell on them. Not yet. Tonight was hers. She exhaled again, long and deep, feeling the weight of expectation, manipulation, and betrayal lift from her shoulders. Her inheritance had given her resources, yes, but it hadn't built her strength. She had built herself. Each sketch, each sleepless night, each ignored slight, had forged her into someone capable of standing here, commanding respect without demand, authority without aggression. Leo leaned back, eyes drifting to the glowing cityscape. He spoke softly. "You look different." Maya's lips curved. "Because I am," she said. "Different doesn't mean better. Different means free." The traffic lights shifted, red to green, a subtle signal that life moved forward, even as moments of reckoning ended. She let the car glide forward, her mind already tracing plans for the future. The company, her designs, the legacy of her grandmother, all of it belonged to her now, fully, irrevocably. And yet, in the quiet between the passing cars, the hum of tires on asphalt, the faint smell of city rain, she sensed something else. An echo. A faint ripple that reminded her power is never permanent, control is never absolute, and the world is always watching, always ready to test those who have just risen. She glanced at Leo. His small hand rested lightly on her arm, steady and calm. They had survived the storm together, and now the quiet between them was not emptiness, it was opportunity. The cab slowed at a familiar intersection, the glow of street lamps illuminating Maya's thoughtful face. Her mind raced with possibilities, strategies, ideas. The future was open, wide, and waiting. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to fight. The moves she had already made had spoken louder than any voice could. She glanced down at her hand, now free of the wedding, a band. It felt lighter, as if every ounce of manipulation, every ounce of control Julian had wielded over her had been stripped away with that single gesture. Maya let herself smile, a real one this time, full of warmth and quiet triumph. Not over Julian, not over revenge, but over the reclamation of her own life, her own choices, her own power. Leo leaned closer. "Mom, are we really done with him?" Maya's gaze met his, steady, unwavering. "We're done with the past," she said. "What comes next? That's ours to write." The car moved into the endless stream of city lights, reflective glass passing by, streets alive with motion. And as they drove, Maya felt it fully, the liberation, the strength, the calm certainty that she had claimed everything she had ever been promised by no one but herself. And yet, Even in the midst of freedom, the city whispered possibilities. Every shadow, every reflection hinted at challenges still to come. But Maya Vance, 25, CEO, creator, inheritor, strategist, she was ready. She exhaled slowly again, letting the air fill her lungs. The world lay ahead of her, infinite and unbroken. As they drove, Maya's phone pinged. Not a threat, but a new opportunity. A confidential message from a top investor Julian had underestimated. He wanted to meet, to discuss a joint venture. Maya realized that the same man who had once been her enemy now sought her approval, reversing the roles entirely. Control had shifted. The power dynamics were now hers. Leo glanced out the window, city lights blurring past. "Mom, is it really over?" Maya smiled faintly, eyes reflecting both triumph and calculation. "Over?" she whispered. "No, not over. It's just beginning." And in that quiet, triumphant moment, the car disappeared into the endless glow of the city, carrying a new CEO, a mother, a daughter of legacy, and a force no one would underestimate again.